Thanks for watching this episode of Today's Homeowner here on YouTube. And don't forget to leave us a like and a comment.
And you can share with a friend if you enjoy it and subscribe so you're notified of new videos.
Thanks and enjoy the show. Many kitchens need a facelift. Wait till you see what we do to this one.
Today's Homeowner with Danny Lipford, the voice of home improvement, with projects, tips, and ideas to help you improve your home.
A kitchen facelift is consistently at the top of those lists that look at what you can recoup from your home improvement dollar. Well, this is a great candidate for a kitchen facelift. We'll be taking care of replacing all of the countertops. This must have been real popular years ago. Also, new kitchen sink. We'll also be replacing all of the hardware on the cabinets and even replacing this antique that's been here ever since the house was brand new. We'll also be painting all of the walls in this area and the adjacent dining room and replacing the floor in the same areas. You know, it really makes a difference when you do a kitchen facelift. Not only does it look better, it doesn't really cost a lot of money. This plastic is covering up what used to be the traditional window over the kitchen sink. Now, the reason this has been removed is because the homeowners are also building an addition on the back side of this house to create a nice little informal family room that they've wanted for a long time. Now, that project really motivated them to do something to this kitchen.
We basically had to pick which room where we really wanted to spend our resources, and so we decided with a growing family to close in the carport and have a nice family room. So the kitchen, we just update it, you know, and it's nice, but, you know, maybe that would be the next room I would renovate. I would definitely want to make it larger, more counter space, more cabinetry.
The countertop that's there now is worn. It has seen many years of use. It has served its useful life. It's time for it to go. The same thing with the sink. The sink is too shallow. The bowls are not big enough. We very quickly filled the sink up with dishes. The vinyl floor was badly worn. It, like the countertop, had lived its useful life. It was time for it to go. It was difficult to keep clean. There were some holes beginning to appear. There was a place where the base cabinets had come out that was blank, that we sort of covered with a rug, things like that. And it was just time to replace the entire floor. And we wanted to go with something that was durable, but really looked good and helped the flow of the room.
Making all material decisions on any home improvement project will ensure that it runs smoothly. Well, the homeowners here have been able to make all of their decisions on countertops, flooring, everything a couple weeks ago. All the ordering has taken place, and hey, it's time to go to work. The first job is to remove the old countertops. This is often much more difficult with older homes like this because installation methods weren't standardized way back when. In other words, you never know what you'll find. Here we found lots of nails, so to get this countertop up, we'll need a hammer and a pry bar. For most modern plastic laminate tops, we could release the top from the cabinets like we're releasing this one from the dishwasher with a drill driver. This top was so well nailed that Mark had to break out the reciprocating saw to convince it to let go of one of the walls. Usually this backsplash would rest on top of the counter, not beneath it. This means the top itself with the disconnected sink intact comes out pretty easily once the front lip is loose. The backsplash is a little trickier because we don't want to damage the drywall behind it. Now, speaking of damage, we have to repair some before we install the new tops. The end piece of this cabinet has a little water damage, so we're replacing it while the tops are off. To prevent future moisture from causing a similar problem, Mark has made the replacement from cabinet grade plywood instead of the particle board used on the original cabinet. Later, we'll paint it to match the rest of the cabinets. When the new tops get out to the site, they are set in place on the cabinets, and when Ron the installer is satisfied they are in the right spot, he attaches them with screws from underneath. Next, he lays out the location of the sink and cuts the 33 by 22 inch hole using a jigsaw. A quick test fit shows that the hole is big enough, but the plumbing pipes will have to be moved down to accommodate the new deeper sink. The backsplashes are dry fit in place before Ron applies adhesive caulk to the back and bottom edges. The splashes have to stay tight against the wall overnight for the caulk to set, so these braces are wedged against the upper cabinet to hold them in place until they are dry. Well, the countertops really turned out nice. You know, no matter how minor a kitchen renovation is, it can be a major inconvenience for the homeowners. Fortunately here, the countertops were removed and replaced in the same day. The plumber even dropped by at the end of the day to install the new sink and faucet, and homeowners selected one with a very large bowl on one side and a more traditional size bowl on this side. That'll really be convenient when you have those large pans that you're trying to wash. Now, the replacement of the countertop, all materials and labor, fabrication and all, cost around $500. So very reasonable when it comes to countertops, but it made a giant difference in the look of this kitchen. Hey, we have a whole lot more to go, but first check out this week's Simple Solution.
It's time for this week's Simple Solution from home repair expert Joe Truini.
The first line of defense to keeping mud and dirt out of your house starts right here with a good doormat right in front of your entryway door.
Because if you allow any of the mud or dirt to get inside the house, particularly if you have hardwood floors, it'll really scratch them up. But the problem, rain blows in, it gets wet, it stays wet a long time.
As you can see here, Danny, this mat's pretty wet from rain, and it keeps the boards soaking wet underneath. Now the rest of the deck's dried out nicely, but underneath where the mat's trapped, it stays wet, and that can lead to mold and mildew, and in really extreme cases, it can actually rot out the deck. Now this is particularly a problem on traditional porch floors that are tongue and groove boards where you don't have any drainage. But in either case, I've got a pretty quick solution that'll solve that problem. And it starts with a plastic grid that is designed for use in fluorescent ceiling fixtures that you typically see in a suspended ceiling. And what I did is I just laid the mat on top of it, and I marked it and cut it to size using a jigsaw. Then you just slide it into place, lay the mat on top, and now you've got a little bit of airspace underneath it. Not only will it let the mat dry out completely, but it'll let the boards dry out as well.
Now, Joe, I see a few screws with washers here. Are you planning on actually securing it down to the deck?
Yeah, I found that the plastic's pretty slippery, and especially when the wood's wet, and as you step on it, it might slide, and that would cause a fall or trip hazard.
Right.
So I'm just going to tack down just two corners with some screws and some large washers. You need the washers because these holes are pretty big. So you just have to tack them right down.
Hey, great solution, Joe. We are right in the middle of this kitchen facelift. We've already completed the replacement of the plastic laminate countertops. That turned out nice. Now our focus is on the installation of the new flooring. Now, the flooring needed to be replaced anyway because you can see it's kind of a tired looking floor, plus the cabinet that David and Blanche mentioned earlier that they had removed created a void in the existing flooring. Now, the gray material that you see is a floor leveling compound that our flooring contractor came out and applied to kind of level up as much of the floor as he could. Now, this is only one coat. He'll come back and do a little sanding and also level out a little bit more. Then be ready to install the flooring that the homeowners chose. Now, at first glance, it looks a lot like ceramic, which that was the original first choice that the homeowners had because they wanted ceramic throughout the entire area, but because of cost issues, they chose to go with this material, which is actually a vinyl tile. Now, this will be a nice looking floor, and it really does simulate the look of ceramic. It has a matte finish, it has a texture, and also the color they selected really goes well with their new countertop. Now, there's a lot of work to be done to install all of the flooring in this area, so let's let those guys get busy. JJ, our installer, begins by applying floor patch to the entire area. This material is specifically designed to adhere to the old vinyl floor and the new one that'll go on top of it once the adhesive is applied. Loose pieces of old flooring are cut out, and the remaining depression is filled with more floor patch. Once the floor is smooth, flat, and dry, JJ uses a V-notch trowel to apply the adhesive that'll hold the new floor down. These vinyl tiles come in 3 different sizes that allow us to create this modular pattern. The big squares are 16 inches by 16 inches, the rectangles are 8 by 16, and the small squares are 8 by 8. The beauty of this floor is that it installs so easily. Ceramic floors require lots of cuts with a noisy, messy wet saw, plus mixing up and applying the thin set adhesive and the sand grout that follows. With this modular vinyl, the glue is pre-mixed and the cuts are made with a utility knife right in the room where they're needed. Plus, there's no coming back to spread grout the next day. Once the tiles go down, the floor is complete. Our vinyl floor really does simulate the look of ceramic very closely, and one of the reasons is the way the tile is manufactured. Now, many different vinyl tiles will have a simulated grout joint like this that's intended for you to butt those together to create the joint. But in doing that, you're still going to have the crack that'll always be visible. But this particular tile, having the grout joints only on the two sides of the tile, allows you to butt a straight edge up to it and really makes it look more authentic in terms of the look of ceramic. Now, this is a good quality vinyl flooring and will cost about the same as ceramic tile as far as the materials. But you can see from earlier, the installation is a lot easier. That means a lot more reasonable in cost. And also, it's very do-it-yourself friendly, so you might consider this when you're putting a floor down yourself. Now, you might wonder why we didn't actually take up the old vinyl floor. In this case, the vinyl floor, other than kind of being old and kind of ugly, it's still in pretty good shape. There's a few areas that had some loose spots that we had to remove and put some floor patch on. But as a general rule, this serves as a very good backing to glue down a vinyl floor like we're putting down, and provides a vapor barrier in case there's a small crack in the concrete slab that'll allow moisture to migrate up through the floor, which is never a good idea no matter what type of flooring you're putting down. Well, JJ will continue progressing with all of the floor throughout the kitchen, which will really make it look good, and then we'll continue on our kitchen facelift with the replacement of the cabinet hardware, and we got to get rid of this thing. All that right after this week's Best New Products.
Let's join Danny at the Home Center to check out this week's Best New Product, brought to you by the Home Depot.
This is something I'm seeing in a lot of today's kitchens, a bottled water dispenser. But this one from GE has a few extra features that are really cool. First of all, you can get tri-temperature water. You can have cold water, you can have room temperature, or you can have very hot water for those instant soups and coffees and teas. Now, this one has a child safety latch that you have to rotate this knob before it'll push in to dispense the hot water. This will prevent any scalding of the little ones around the home. It also has a very generous overflow pan here that lifts out, and you can take it apart for real easy cleaning. That makes it very convenient. Now, when you think about the technology behind cooling water, it only makes sense to include a chilled compartment on the lower part of this. It's perfect for snacks or any other beverages that you may want to chill down, and it fits conveniently right under the dispenser, all in one housing. Now, it also has the finish that will go very well with all the stainless steel appliances that you see around kitchens these days. And the bottle, it comes separate. It's sold separately, but it's available in both 3-gallon and 5-gallon sizes. Hey, this might be a great addition to your kitchen. Our new floor is complete, our countertops are in, and the kitchen is already looking a lot better. Now, the homeowners originally wanted to replace all of the appliances in their kitchen, but the budget was a little limited, so they decided to replace the one appliance that looked the worst and really didn't function very well, and that's the range hood. So Greg and I are in the process of about to install a brand new one here. Now, the first thing we've done is we've turned the power off, the electricity off to the unit. Now we'll actually take the unit down.
Hey, they use nails instead of screws.
Oh, this will be fun. The inside of this thing doesn't look any better than the outside, and removing these nails is a bit annoying, but on the positive side, there are only 3 nails and 1 screw holding the hood up, so it comes out fairly easily. The new hood is obviously a much sleeker unit and can be set up to exhaust the cooking fumes or filter and recirculate them. We've chosen the latter. As we raise the new hood into place, we feed the electrical wires through the top before we attach it to the top of the opening with wood screws. Inside the hood housing, we make all the electrical connections, and we put this thing back together and then add the light bulbs.
Okay, here we go.
Great. Hey, that looks a lot better than the old antique hood we took out of there. Now, the next step in this kitchen facelift is to replace all of the cabinet hardware. Now, you may have noticed that we have one cabinet door missing. The reason for that is we took the cabinet door down and took the old hardware off and took it with us to the home center to make sure we got the exact same layout and same type of hardware. Now, it's very important on any offset hinge like this that you do match up the old and the new type of offset, as well as the holes lining up. That's very important because when you take the old hardware off and you use the new, you don't want to have to do any paint touch-up. This will cover that and you won't have any problem. Now, the same is true for the handles. It's a good idea to match the handles up with the spacing of the screws, and also that it fits over the footprint of it as well. Again, no paint touch-up will be necessary when you do that. Now, changing hardware like this, not only is it very inexpensive, it's also very easy if you know how to use one of these. It's all you really need to get started. And if an old-fashioned screwdriver works well, then a cordless drill driver is even better, or at least it's a lot faster. In another effort to speed things up, we're reusing the old hardware's mounting screws since they're the same size as the new ones. For the hinges, I take the whole door off the cabinet first, then remove the hinge from the door before putting on the new hinges. This is where having identical screw patterns comes in handy, because installing the new hinges, then mounting the doors is a no-brainer if everything matches up. Now, that's quite an improvement here in the kitchen, and the hardware only cost us $30. Now, your personality can really come out in hardware like this, and it can vary in price quite a bit on the quality and exactly the type of hardware that you choose. But like I say, this is very simple. Only took us about an hour to put all of this together. Now, another thing that can vary quite a bit in cost is your range hood. Now, this particular one cost between $300 and $400, but they can range from $80 all the way up to $800 depending on some of the features. Now, this particular one has some fairly neat features. First of all, on the light controls, you can increase the intensity of the light and control those very easily. Same way for the fan. You can cut it on very low, or if it needs to be a little more aggressive, you can turn it on even stronger. Also, it has a delay button here that allows you to push the delay button and it'll stay on for a period of time while you're out of the kitchen to cool things down and to let some of the grease escape from the kitchen. Now, when you're choosing a range hood like this, several things you need to consider. First of all, the color. You want a color that's compatible with your other appliances. You also want to check the size carefully. This particular one's a little larger than some, 36 inches. Probably a more common size would be around 30 inches. Another thing to consider is that many of the range hoods like this recirculate the air, just like the one we have here. Others exhaust the air to the outside. Because of this being a two-story house and the way that the house was designed, this one does recirculate. So that's something else to consider, because some units offer either of those options, like this one. Some only one of those options, so that's something to consider. Now, when we come back, we'll recap this project for you, show you where we started, how we got to this point, and the total cost of the overall project. But first, our Around the Yard segment.
Let's head outside for Around the Yard with lawn and garden expert Tricia Craven-Worley. Brought to you by TimberTech Composite Decking.
Tricia, when I'm traveling around the country, I see so many people with fruit trees now. I know I love my kumquat tree. It seems like I have fruit on it just about all year long.
Well, this looks like a nice healthy tree, and you can see some good new growth coming here. You know, you've got it in a good spot, it gets good water, and also it's right against this brick wall that gives it radiant heat all year round.
Now, what are some other things we need to know about fruit trees to really make them produce as much fruit as possible?
Well, fruit trees probably take at least a year, if not 2 to 6 years, depending on what variety it is, where it's planted, and what kind of fruit. A sapling will at least take 1 year to get going. And actually, dwarf trees begin to fruit sooner than some of the full-grown trees.
Oh, okay.
But one thing that I like to do is stimulate the tree. And by that, I mean literally come out here, say hi to the tree, and just shake it up a little bit.
Now, how does that help? I mean, does it just take some of the old fruit drops off and you're able to make room for new, or what really
Well,
happens?
actually, that does help, but what it actually does is it gets the sap going out to the buds and the leaves. And of course, that gives it more growth and more fruiting.
Okay, so it's kind of like the jogger running down the road. The blood pumps a little bit more.
Okay. Exactly. Now, this isn't something you should do all year round.
Okay.
You want to find out what your particular tree, what its dormant period is. And for most people, that would be during the winter. But when it comes springtime and everything begins to start budding and blooming and leafing, that would be a good time to shake it up.
Okay. A simple kitchen facelift like this has made this family very happy. Also inspired them a little bit to have us come into the dining room and paint all of the walls and extend our vinyl flooring out into the same area, which is the way it should be. Now, the kitchen we started with was very outdated, had a lot of problems both with the countertop, with a lot of the cabinets, as well as the flooring. But now, with a budget of less than $3,000, we've been able to take care of brand new countertops. The hardware's worked out really nicely. The range hood really needed to be replaced, and of course the floor ties it all together. You know, a kitchen facelift like this can make a house sell better than just about anything else if the homeowners decide to sell their house sometimes. So you may want to think about that if you're putting your house on the market. $3,000, you may get as much as $5,000 back. Hey, I'm glad you were with us this week and hope you'll join us next week. I'm Danny Lipford. Thanks for watching this episode of Today's Homeowner. And don't forget to like, comment, and hit the bell icon so that you'll be notified of new videos.
And be sure to click around and watch some more videos while you're here.